The Exilari Dominion had ruled the stars for centuries. Their warships were massive, heavily armored, and armed with the deadliest weapons in the galaxy. No species had ever stood against them and survived. To the Exilari, war was not just conquest, it was a display of power, a reminder to all that they were the supreme force in the universe. And then humanity arrived. At first, the galactic community had little interest in this new species. Humans were small, their homeworld was insignificant, and their technology seemed outdated compared to the great empires of the galaxy. But when the Exilari took notice, everything changed. Humanity was expanding fast. Too fast. Unlike other species, they were not afraid to settle in dangerous regions of space. They adapted to extreme conditions, built colonies in asteroid fields, and transformed barren moons into thriving outposts. Even worse, they were clever. They studied alien technology, improved upon it, and created weapons that were small but efficient. The Exilari saw this as an insult. No new species had the right to grow this quickly, especially not one as primitive as humanity. They declared that humans had one cycle, roughly a year in human time, to submit to the Dominion. The humans refused. The Galactic Council gathered to discuss the matter. Many species had fallen to the Exilari before, and most assumed the humans would be no different. Some even mocked them, saying, "Let them fight. It will be over in days." The Exilari were confident. They sent 100 warships, an overwhelming fleet that had crushed entire civilizations in the past. Their commanders expected an easy victory, a battle so short that it would barely be remembered. But then the humans did something no one expected. They sent only one ship, a single, black, coffin-shaped vessel, barely half the size of a Exilari cruiser. It had no visible weapons, no heavy armor, nothing that suggested it could survive even a few seconds in battle. When the Exilari saw it, they laughed. This is their defense. A flying coffin. One Exilari commander scoffed. Perhaps they surrender already. Another joked. The Galactic Council was equally confused. Some thought the humans were making a last desperate attempt at diplomacy. Others assumed it was some kind of mistake. No sane species would send one ship against an entire fleet. But the humans said nothing. The ship, Nemesis, moved forward silently. It did not broadcast any signals, did not attempt to negotiate, did not even slow down as it approached the Exilari Armada. The Exilari leader, Admiral Vorixen, watched from the command deck of his massive flagship, the Dominion's Wrath. He was amused. This battle would be over in moments. "Fire," he ordered. 100 Exilari warships unleashed their weapons. Plasma cannons, ion beams, torpedoes, all aimed at the lone human vessel. The space around Nemesis burned with deadly energy. And then, Nemesis disappeared. The sensors on every Exilari ship went blank for a second. The human vessel was gone. Admiral Vorixen frowned. Had they destroyed it? Before he could speak, one of his officers screamed, "Admiral, we just lost the Warbringer." The Exilari turned to their main screen. One of their largest battleships, Warbringer, was breaking apart. Fires spread through its hull. Its own cannons were firing on itself. A second later, the ship exploded into nothingness. Then another ship suffered the same fate, and another. Admiral Vorixen's amusement turned to horror. This wasn't possible. Nemesis was still nowhere to be seen, but the Exilari ships were dying, one by one. Panic spread across the Exilari Armada. The once mighty fleet, which had crushed civilizations without mercy, now faced an enemy they couldn't even see. For the first time in history, the Exilari felt something they had never experienced before. Fear. Admiral Vorixen gripped the edges of his command chair, his claws digging into the metal. The massive Exilari war fleet had fired everything they had at the human ship, and yet it was gone. 100 warships surrounded the area where Nemesis had been moments ago. Plasma cannons and ion beams had turned that space into a firestorm. No ship could have survived. And yet, something was wrong. Their own ships were exploding. "Admiral, we lost the Warbringer and the Shadow Claw," auxiliary officers shouted in panic. Two of their strongest warships had just been destroyed. "How?" Vorkson growled, his mandibles clicking in frustration. "Unknown. No enemy detected. It's as if their own systems turned against them." Vorkson's eyes narrowed. That was impossible. The auxiliary Dominion's warships were the best in the galaxy. Their weapons, shields, and security systems were flawless. No enemy had ever hacked them. No enemy had ever disabled them. "Find the human ship," the Admiral barked. His officers worked furiously, scanning every wavelength, every energy signature. But there was nothing. It was as if the human ship had vanished from existence. And then, another explosion. The Void Reaper, one of the Dominion's fastest cruisers, detonated from within. Its shields were still up, its hull untouched by enemy fire. And yet, its engines overloaded and self-destructed. The panic in the auxiliary command center grew. "Admiral, they're using some kind of invisible attack. We can't stop it." Vorkson slammed his fist on the control panel. "There is no such thing as an invisible attack. Find them." The auxiliary fleet began to maneuver in defensive patterns. Warships turned in all directions, scanning, searching, desperate to locate their unseen enemy. But every second, another ship was lost. One officer suddenly gasped. "Admiral, our ships, they are locking onto each other." Vorkson's eyes widened. He turned to his tactical display, and what he saw filled him with horror. The auxiliary fleet's own targeting systems had been hacked. Their warships were now marking each other as enemies. Their cannons turned inward, and before the Admiral could react, half the fleet opened fire on itself. The humans' secret weapon. Light years away, on a hidden command station orbiting a barren moon, Commander Elias Carter watched the chaos unfold. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp with focus. The Nemesis was not just a ship, it was a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. While the auxiliary built massive, bulky warships, humanity had focused on something else: stealth, cyber warfare, and precision strikes. The Nemesis didn't need heavy armor. It didn't need massive cannons. It had something far more dangerous: a quantum cloaking system that rendered it completely undetectable, and an AI-driven infiltration system that could override enemy ships in seconds. The auxiliary had assumed they were fighting a traditional battle. But this wasn't a battle. It was a hunt. Carter's voice was calm as he spoke into his communicator. "Confirming next target. Mark the Dominion's RAF for shutdown." On the battlefield, the auxiliary flagship's lights flickered. Every screen in the command deck suddenly turned black. Officers shouted as their controls became unresponsive. Admiral Vorkson felt his blood turn cold. "What is happening?" he roared. Then a voice echoed through the ship's speakers, a calm, human voice. "Admiral Vorkson, this is Commander Carter of the Terran Defense Force." The auxiliary froze. "You and your people laughed at our ship, called it a coffin. But tell me, Admiral, how does it feel to be inside one now?" Vorkson's mandibles clicked furiously. "You think you have won, human. We are warriors. We will fight to the last ship." Carter chuckled. "You won't have a last ship, Admiral. Not if I turn them all off first." And with that, Nemesis made its final move. Every auxiliary ship in the fleet went dark. Their weapons stopped firing. Their engines shut down. Their shields collapsed. The once mighty auxiliary Armada was now nothing more than a graveyard of powerless warships drifting through space. And Nemesis, it was already gone. The battlefield was silent. The mighty auxiliary Armada, once a symbol of power and dominance, now drifted lifelessly in space. Dozens of warships were either destroyed or disabled. Their engines were dead. Their weapons refused to fire. Their shields were down. On the Dominion's wrath, Admiral Vorkson's rage boiled inside him. His powerful fleet had been reduced to helpless metal coffins, all because of one tiny human ship, the Nemesis. Restart the systems. Override whatever they did. Vorksen growled. His officers frantically worked, but nothing responded. Their advanced computers were completely locked out. Their weapons could not be controlled. Their communications were jammed. And the worst part, the humans were still nowhere to be seen. The fear spreads. On the bridge of the Nemesis, Commander Elias Carter watched the auxiliary fleet struggling like a cornered beast. His ship remained hidden under quantum cloaking, invisible to all sensors. "They're still trying to fight," one of his officers noted. Carter smiled. "They haven't realized yet. The battle is already over." The auxiliary had spent centuries believing in brute force, massive warships, heavy armor, unstoppable firepower, but none of that mattered if your own technology turned against you. The Nemesis didn't fight like other ships. It didn't need a fleet. It didn't need bigger guns. It simply hacked into enemy systems, taking away their ability to fight. And now, the auxiliary were learning that lesson the hard way. Desperation on the Dominion's wrath. "Admiral, our fleet is down to 20% functionality," an officer reported, panic in his voice. "This is madness." Another shouted, "No enemy ship should have this power." Vorksen's claws tightened into fists. He had never lost a battle before. The auxiliary never lost. "No more games," he snarled. His eyes turned to the last weapon they had left, the planetary disintegration cannon. This was the Dominion's ultimate weapon, a massive energy cannon designed to wipe out entire planets. If they couldn't destroy the Nemesis directly, then they would target the nearest human colony. "Prepare the disintegration cannon," Vorksen ordered. "If they want war, we will show them the true power of the Dominion." His officers hesitated. "Admiral, we would be committing mass destruction." The Galactic Council. "The Council does not command the Dominion." Vorksen snapped. "If we cannot kill their ship, we will make them suffer another way." The order was given. The cannon began to charge. The final warning. On board the Nemesis, alarms sounded. "Sir, the Dominion's wrath is charging a planet-killer weapon." Carter's expression hardened. He had hoped the auxiliary would surrender, but they were too arrogant, too stubborn. They would rather destroy an innocent colony than admit defeat. "Send a message to the Dominion's wrath," Carter ordered. A moment later, Admiral Vorksen's screen flickered. Carter's face appeared. His voice was calm, but firm. "Admiral Vorksen, your fleet is crippled. Your weapons are useless. Your empire is falling. Stand down now, or we will end this." Vorksen bared his fangs. "You think you scare me, human. I will make sure your people beg for mercy." The charge level of the planetary cannon reached 80%. Carter sighed. He had given them a chance. "Very well," he said. "You have chosen your fate. The Nemesis strikes." The Nemesis moved, still unseen, still undetected. It slipped past the remaining auxiliary ships, heading straight for the Dominion's wrath. Inside the auxiliary flagship, alarms blared. "Something is happening," an officer shouted. "Our core is—" "No, no, this isn't possible." The central reactor of the Dominion's wrath began to overheat. Systems failed. The cannon that had been charging to destroy an entire planet suddenly exploded from within. A chain reaction followed. Fires spread through the ship. The bridge shook violently. "What is happening?" Vorksen roared. His officers were screaming. The ship was dying. "We have lost all control, Admiral." Outside, the auxiliary fleet watched in horror as their mighty flagship, the heart of the Dominion's power, burst into flames. And then, boom! The Dominion's wrath exploded. The largest, strongest warship in the auxiliary fleet was no more. A galaxy changed forever. Silence. For the first time in centuries, the auxiliary knew fear. Their great fleet was shattered. Their leader was gone. Their most powerful weapon had been turned against them. The message was clear. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was the future. The remaining Xilari ships, now leaderless, fled the battlefield, their once proud empire crumbling before their eyes. And as the Nemesis disappeared into the darkness of space, one final transmission echoed across the galaxy. You laughed at our coffin, until you found yourself inside one. The battlefield was silent. Once, the Xilari Armada had filled this region of space, an unstoppable force feared by countless civilizations. Now all that remained were burning wrecks, drifting husks of warships, and the faint echoes of their shattered pride. The Dominion's wrath, the pride of the Xilari fleet, was gone, reduced to nothing but debris. The remaining Xilari ships, now leaderless and broken, had fled. The war, at least this battle, was over. And Nemesis, it had vanished into the void, leaving behind only the terrifying memory of its power. The galaxy reacts. News of the battle spread like wildfire across the galactic community. The Xilari Dominion, once believed to be invincible, had been defeated by a single human ship. No one had ever imagined such a thing was possible. On countless planets, species that had lived in fear of the Xilari rejoiced. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted, and the name Nemesis was now spoken with both awe and terror. But while some celebrated, others were afraid. In the great halls of the Galactic Council, alien leaders gathered in secret. These were the rulers of great empires, some neutral, some allied with the Xilari, some simply watching from the shadows. And now, they had one question in mind. What happens if humanity turns its weapons on us? The idea of a single cloaked warship crippling an entire armada was terrifying. If the humans had one nemesis, did they have more? Were they already preparing for war? The truth was, no one knew, and that uncertainty scared them. On board the Nemesis, deep in space, far from prying eyes, Nemesis floated in the void. Inside the command center, Commander Elias Carter stood before a holographic display, watching real-time reports from across the galaxy. "They fear us," said Lieutenant Area Voss, his second-in-command. Carter smirked. "Good. Let them." Area nodded but hesitated. "But some of them are looking for revenge. The Xilari aren't finished. They will rebuild, and when they do, they'll come back stronger." Carter's expression hardened. "Let them try," he said. "We proved that brute force alone doesn't win wars. The galaxy now knows that humans fight differently. Smarter, more precise. The Xilari thought they were the apex predators." He turned to Area, his voice firm. "But we just showed them they were wrong." The Nemesis had done more than win a battle. It had changed history. But Carter knew this was only the beginning. The Xilari's shame. Far away, on the Xilari homeworld of Zarquan, the Xilari High Council gathered in a towering chamber of dark metal and glowing red symbols. For centuries, these warlords had commanded respect and fear. Now, they sat in humiliated silence. An entire fleet, lost, one of them growled. "To a single ship," another added bitterly. A deep, commanding voice broke the silence. "Where is Admiral Vorkson?" The council members shifted uncomfortably. No one wanted to say it, but the truth was unavoidable. "He is dead," someone finally admitted. "His flagship was destroyed. We believe he perished in the explosion." A cold, sharp silence followed. "And what of the humans?" They have disappeared. Their ship is nowhere to be found." The council leader's claws scraped against the stone table. The Xilari had always been the ones to crush their enemies, to erase anyone who dared challenge them. But now, for the first time in history, they were the ones who had been defeated. The thought was unbearable. "This is not over," the council leader growled. His eyes burned with cold fury. "The humans have humiliated us. That cannot be allowed." Another warlord leaned forward. "Then what do we do?" The council leader's mandibles clicked. His voice was low and dangerous. We rebuild. We evolve. We learn from our mistakes. He turned his gaze to the darkened screen at the center of the chamber, where the last known image of Nemesis was displayed. And when the time is right, we erase the humans from the stars. The war is not over. In the cold depths of space, far beyond the reach of any empire, Nemesis drifted in silence, cloaked, unseen, watching. The Exilari thought they were the only ones preparing for war. But humanity was always ready. Because in the vast, ruthless galaxy, only one truth remained. You either evolve, or you die. And humanity. They were evolving faster than anyone had ever imagined. The galaxy was changing. After the destruction of the Exilari fleet, fear and uncertainty spread across the stars. Some species celebrated, seeing it as the fall of a tyrant. Others watched in silent terror, wondering if humanity had become the new unstoppable force. But one thing was clear: the Exilari dominion was not finished. Deep within their homeworld of Zarquan, in the darkest depths of the High Council's war chambers, the surviving Exilari leaders planned their revenge. The Exilari's darkest secret. A towering warlord stood before the council, his eyes burning with fury. Lord Kravos, now the highest-ranking leader after Admiral Vorixen's death, slammed his clawed fist on the table. We were humiliated, he snarled. Our greatest fleet, our strongest warships, defeated by a single human vessel. The other warlords remained silent. They did not deny the truth. The loss was unlike anything they had ever experienced. But Kravos had a plan. The humans think they have won. They believe they are safe, he growled. They are fools. They do not know what we are truly capable of. A hologram flickered to life in the center of the room. It showed a massive construction site hidden deep within the uncharted regions of the galaxy. Gigantic shipyards, powerful reactors, and fleets of warships far beyond anything seen before. The Exilari had been building something new. Behold, Kravos said, his voice filled with dark pride. The Harbinger Project. The warlords leaned forward, their eyes widening. What? What is this? One of them asked. A new breed of warships, Kravos explained. Larger, faster, more powerful, immune to the humans' cyber attacks, and with weapons strong enough to burn their worlds to ash. A silence followed, heavy with anticipation. Then one of the warlords bared his fangs in a vicious smile. We will wipe them from existence. The Exilari had learned from their mistakes. This time, they would not underestimate humanity. The shadow of war. Meanwhile, far away in deep space, Commander Elias Carter sat in the command center of the Nemesis, watching reports from human intelligence networks. Something was wrong. Since the Exilari defeat, things had been too quiet. Their remaining warships had retreated without a fight, and there were no signs of activity from their military command. They're planning something, said Lieutenant Area Voss, standing beside him. Carter nodded. The Exilari don't just give up. They're rebuilding. And when they return, they'll be stronger than ever. Area exhaled. Do we have any idea what they're planning? Carter tapped the screen. A series of intercepted transmissions appeared, scrambled but containing strange energy readings from deep space. Not yet, he admitted. But we need to find out before it's too late. Humanity had won a battle, but the war was far from over. The search for answers. The Nemesis activated its quantum cloaking and slipped into the void, heading toward the coordinates of the mysterious signals. After days of travel, they arrived at a dark region of space. No stars, no planets, just endless blackness. And then, they saw it. A massive shipyard, hidden behind artificial energy fields. Hundreds of warships under construction, towering capital ships armed with unknown weapons. Carter's fists clenched. They're building a new fleet, Area whispered. Not just a fleet, Carter corrected. A weapon. The Harbinger Project was real, and when it was complete, It would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. If the Xilari finished their work, humanity would not survive the next war. Carter turned to his crew, his voice steady. "We can't let that happen. We have to stop them, before it's too late." The Nemesis had one mission now: strike first, or die. The fate of humanity depended on it. The Nemesis floated silently in the darkness of space, hidden by its quantum cloaking. From the outside, it was as if the ship did not exist. But inside, the crew worked with intense focus. They had discovered the Harbinger Project, the Xilari's new war fleet, hidden deep in uncharted space. If these ships were completed, humanity would not survive the next war. Commander Elias Carter stood at the center of the command deck, his sharp eyes scanning the massive enemy shipyard displayed on the holographic screen. "There it is," said Lieutenant Area Voss, pointing at a towering structure in the middle of the shipyard. It was a massive central command station, controlling the entire construction process. If they could destroy it, the Xilari's new fleet would be crippled before it even launched. But there was a problem. "Their defenses are stronger than we thought," Area continued. "Multiple warships, automated turrets, and an energy shield protecting the entire station." Carter nodded. A direct attack was suicide. But the Nemesis did not fight like a normal warship. "We don't need to fight their fleet," Carter said. "We just need to make sure those ships never leave this shipyard." The crew waited for his orders. Carter's eyes burned with determination. "Prepare for infiltration. We're taking them down from the inside." The silent infiltration. The Nemesis moved carefully, slipping through the outer layers of the Xilari defenses. Its stealth technology made it invisible to enemy scanners, but one wrong move could alert the entire fleet. Inside the ship, a small team of elite operatives, dressed in black infiltration suits, prepared for their mission. Among them was Lieutenant Area Voss, leading the strike team. "Our objective is simple," she told her team. "Get in, plant the virus, and get out." Their plan was risky but effective: upload a computer virus into the Xilari mainframe, causing the shipyard's automated systems to turn against their own fleet. The Xilari would never see it coming. Inside the enemy fortress, the infiltration team breached the station's outer defenses, moving quickly through the dark corridors of the Xilari command center. The Xilari were larger and stronger, but humans were faster and smarter. Area and her team avoided enemy patrols, using their advanced technology to disable security cameras and motion sensors. They reached the main control room, where a massive central core controlled the entire shipyard. "We're in," Area whispered into her communicator. Back on the Nemesis, Carter gave the order. "Begin the upload." One of the operatives connected a data spike to the system. The virus started to spread, silently taking control of every automated defense, every construction drone, every targeting system. In just a few minutes, the Xilari shipyard was no longer theirs. The chaos begins. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the Xilari station. "They've detected us," one of Area's team members shouted. Xilari guards rushed toward the control room, their weapons raised. The human operatives opened fire, using advanced pulse rifles to take them down quickly. "Commander, we need extraction," Area called over the radio. Back on the Nemesis, Carter watched as the virus completed its final phase. Then, it activated. The shipyard turned against the Xilari. Defense turrets started firing at Xilari warships. Construction drones went rogue, smashing into unfinished battlecruisers. Energy reactors overloaded, causing massive explosions to rip through the shipyard. The Xilari were completely unprepared. Their own fleet, their own weapons, everything was now their enemy. And in the middle of the chaos, the Nemesis moved in to extract the human strike team. A daring escape. Area and her team raced through the burning station, dodging collapsing structures and enemy fire. The Nemesis approached, its hangar doors opening as it hovered in the chaos. "Jump!" Area shouted. The operatives leaped onto the docking ramp just as an explosion ripped through the station. The Nemesis pulled away at full speed, vanishing into the void as the shipyard collapsed behind them. The Harbinger project was destroyed. The wrath of the Xilari. From a hidden command ship, Lord Kravos watched in horrified rage as the greatest Xilari war project burned before his eyes. "Impossible," he whispered. His fleet had been crippled before it could even launch, and he knew who was responsible. "The Nemesis," he growled. His claws dug into his armrest, his fury reaching its peak. The humans had humiliated the Xilari twice now. "This will not stand," Kravos vowed. He turned to his officers, his voice deadly calm. "Prepare our remaining fleet. We will hunt them down. We will find Earth, and we will show humanity what true destruction looks like." The final battle was coming. And this time, the Xilari would not underestimate the humans. The war had reached its final stage. The destruction of the Harbinger project had crippled the Xilari's plans, but it had also ignited their fury. Now, the Xilari Dominion had gathered their remaining warships, a massive fleet, larger than anything seen before. And they were coming, not just for the Nemesis, but for Earth itself. Commander Elias Carter stood in the command center of the Nemesis, watching the holographic display as thousands of Xilari warships approached the Sol system. This was it, humanity's final stand. The defense of Earth. Across the solar system, Earth's defenses were preparing for the fight of their lives. The Terran Defense Fleet, made up of battleships, cruisers, and fighter squadrons, took position near Mars, ready to intercept the Xilari invasion. Orbital cannons around Earth powered up, their massive barrels glowing with energy. Defense satellites locked onto targets. Every available warship, every pilot, every soldier, all of humanity stood ready. And leading them was the Nemesis. Carter turned to his crew. "We have fought them before. We have beaten them before. But this is the final battle. If we fail here, there is no second chance." He looked at each of them, his voice steady. "We are not just fighting for ourselves. We are fighting for our families, for our home, for the future of humanity. And we will show the Xilari, one last time, why they should fear us." The crew responded with a determined roar. The battle was about to begin. The battle begins. The Xilari fleet came out of hyperspace, their warships blotting out the stars. "All units, engage," Carter ordered. The solar system exploded into chaos. Massive laser beams cut through the darkness as ships exchanged fire. Missiles streaked through space, finding their targets in fiery explosions. Fighter squadrons weaved through the battlefield, engaging in deadly dogfights. The Nemesis, still cloaked, moved silently through the battlefield, striking from the shadows. Every time, a Xilari battleship locked onto a human target, the Nemesis hacked its systems, turning its weapons against its own fleet. Confusion spread among the Xilari ranks. Their once mighty Armada was falling apart. But the Xilari were relentless. They pushed forward, overwhelming Earth's defenses with sheer numbers. Several human ships were destroyed, their wreckage drifting into the void. The orbital defense platforms around Earth began to fall. It was clear this was a fight to the death. Nemesis versus the Xilari flagship. At the center of the Xilari fleet, the massive warship Dominator loomed, the personal command ship of Lord Kravos. From his throne-like command chair, Kravos watched the battle, his eyes filled with hatred. "Where is the Nemesis?" he growled. "Unknown, my lord," his officer replied. Kravos bared his fangs. "Then we force it to reveal itself." The Dominator unleashed a devastating energy wave, tearing through human ships. Explosions filled the battlefield as the Xilari targeted Earth's last defenses. The Nemesis had no choice. Carter took a deep breath. Drop cloak. Full attack. The Nemesis decloaked behind the Dominator and fired its experimental railgun, a weapon so powerful it ripped through the flagship's armor in a single blast. The Dominator shook violently. Kravos roared in rage. "There you are. The Xilari flagship turned all its weapons toward the Nemesis. But the Nemesis was faster. It moved like a ghost, dodging incoming fire while launching precise attacks at the Dominator's weak points. The end of Kravos. Inside the Nemesis, Area called out, "We have a clear shot at their power core." Carter didn't hesitate. Fire. The railgun fired one last time. A direct hit. The Dominator began to implode, its energy core overloading. Fires spread through the flagship, alarms blaring. Inside, Kravos staggered, realizing he had lost. "No, this cannot be." His final words were cut off as the Dominator exploded, taking hundreds of Xilari ships with it. Their leader was dead. The Xilari fleet broke apart, their remaining warships retreating into hyperspace. The battle was over. Humanity had won. Aftermath. A new era. The battlefield was silent. Wreckage from both sides drifted through space, but Earth still stood. Inside the Nemesis, the crew stared at the screens, hardly believing what they had just done. Then, cheers erupted across the ship, across the entire human fleet, across Earth itself. Humanity had survived. Carter exhaled and looked at Area. "We did it." She smiled. "Yeah, we did." A warning to the galaxy. Days later, in the halls of the Galactic Council, alien leaders debated what had happened. The Xilari Dominion, once the most feared power in the galaxy, was broken. And the humans, they had done the impossible. One alien leader finally spoke. "If the humans can defeat the Xilari, what else are they capable of?" Silence followed, because deep down, they all knew the truth. Humanity was no longer just another species in the galaxy. They were a power to be reckoned with. Final words. As the Nemesis drifted into the unknown, Carter gazed at the stars. The war was over, for now, but he knew one thing for certain. They mocked our Coffin, until it wiped out their Armada. He smirked. Let them remember that.